Why hello, Blair here of Chaos Costumes, and I want to explore something a little more organic this time with teaching you guys Nomad Sculpt. I think you'll have a lot of fun making it. So without further ado, let's go. So last time we made this cute little crystal totem. Let's make something new. And we will be making a wizard staff this time. So we'll add a tube to start out, and we don't need the sphere, so goodbye sphere. Let's zoom out and click on the grid and make sure the little magnet is toggled in the top right corner. And make it really long. Zoom out some more, make it a little longer. More. And then we'll add nodes intermittently throughout this staff. Added a security node so that the curve will not affect the rest of the staff. This is the beginnings of a tree branch. So I want to make this branch a lot more organic, so we're going to make the profile super wiggly. There's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's only chaos. Now that we have premium wiggles, we will change the profile for all the nodes by selecting in the top right corner, copying that, and then pasting all. And we'll make the wiggles all the way down the staff. What I'm seeing here is show in viewport. So our profile is depicted every time we click a node. And I'll change the twist twice. So I can twist it around, and then a third time to be able to twist it around even more organically. Pretty much my goal here is to make a foundation that is randomized so that when I do stamp on top, it's not super consistent. Then I'll change the radius for each point. Since I have the profile shown in viewport, I can push stuff around from this view. I just want to make sure there's nothing too sharp and make it as random as possible. I'm just going from node to node, just randomizing the pattern. Now that I'm happy with the space shape, I'm going to go in with a tube and have the shape selected and draw another line and get rid of these extra nodes. The goal is to make a little cradle. A cradle for what, you say? Well, you have to see. I'm going to take that little offshoot and draw another tube just to finish out this branch. I'm going to do something cool with the tube to make a little grip. So there's this little spiral option down here, and you can spiral a tube around. Let's make it a little longer with snapping disabled so that it follows the grid. And then increase the amount of times it spirals. Then we'll change the profile. A square is just fine. But I really want this to crisscross. So what I'm going to do is make a clone of that tube and then flip it under the mirror. So now I have this little X pattern. I want to make the original one a little bit smaller so it overlaps. And then I will subdivide it just so it's a little smoother around the edges. I think I want these edges to be a little bit softer, so I'm just going to go in with a global smooth. Just so the overlap is a little more obvious. Now I can go in and change the profile so nothing is sticking out on the hood. Just going to take these two things and join them so they're all one piece and shrink it a little bit. And then go in and fix the profile again. Now that I'm pretty happy with that, I'm just gonna add a cylinder to cap off these edges. After I'm happy with them, I'll validate them and subdivide them just to curve out those sharp edges. And then use some global smoothing, like I did with the rest. I'll take that little offshoot from the top and draw another tube, just so I have less work to do. Once again, just draw another little tube to build this out. Now that I'm happy with the general shape of the staff, I'm going to take all the components, minus the hand grip, and join them, subdivide them just so they're smoother, and then voxel remesh them pretty high. Don't get too worried, it doesn't have to calculate a lot. Now we can go in and smooth these transitions. I'll use the move tool to refine this corner here. And then smoothing out these little tips here. I want to make this Y a nice stable platform for what we're going to add. I mean, you saw the thumbnail, you know what we're going to add. Unless you were blindly clicking on things. If so, I'm glad you found my video. Now that I've smoothed and moved to my heart's desire, let's go in and stamp a texture. And we're going to use the texture that we made in the alpha stamp video that we totally stole from Wikipedia. If you want to know how to make that stamp, please check out that video. You also want to make sure the filter is front-facing vertex only. Please use this, it's so important. And now we can just plop a texture on top of our organic swizzles and swirls. So we have primary and secondary form. I wonder if there's tertiary form. This is why we didn't combine the hand grip, just so we can be willy-nilly with the stamp. So stamping pushed this texture out a little bit, so let's use the move tool to push it back in. Another reason why we don't combine the hand grip right away. Noticing here that the cylinder should probably go a little higher. Since I only joined these shapes, I'll just separate them, and I can edit them individually. That's better. Now I can just combine all of these shapes, the staff and the handle included, by voxel remeshing incredibly high. Don't be too alarmed, this is a pretty simple shape, it's just very long. Now the biggest reason why we combined everything is that I want to make this stick less straight. So let's use the move tool, pretty big, and make this stick more organic. And a little longer. The goal is to make it look nice from every angle. I also want to bring up this little Y here because we're going to put a crystal in the middle of it. Yes, that's right. I gave it away. Not like the thumbnail did. Alright, so let's add the sweet little crystal with more tubes. Is this... I think it's true. This entire thing is made out of tubes. Maybe I'll title this video Fun with Tubes. Oops, all tubes. So once again, I have the grid turned on with the magnet, and then reducing the division to 4 and changing the radius to 3 nodes on that little menu up there, and then sharpening up that corner there by tapping that node. By the way, you can like zoom in on your object. On the top right corner here, where there's like a square with only corners, yeah, you can just zoom in on your object that way. What we're going to do here is the exact same thing we did in the previous video, where we made a little crystal cluster by making so many copies. Just keep cloning the original shape until you're happy. Please note, if you guys are lost, I have a ton of videos, and the one before this was Nomad for Dummies. So I try to make everything as clear as possible where things are. But if you have any questions, I do pay attention to the comment section. Now that I'm happy with this little crystal cluster that we've made, let's select all of it and join it. And I want to make it a little bigger. I'll push the hood part out so it can emphasize the crystals. And then go in with the X-ray so I can see what's going on in there and smooth where the crystal sits. Now we work on making the crystal look a little bit more organic. So with the symmetry toggled off, I will separate these shapes and then trim off the corners of each crystal. Not like that though. I find the joining to validate everything, turning off the symmetry and separating them is a much better workflow than the previous video. But essentially we'll just rinse and repeat with the line trim, just to make these crystals look more organic and less uniform. This step isn't incredibly necessary for what you're trying to accomplish, but I'm particular. What I can do is, with sharp edges toggled, remesh it pretty high. So I'm going to add a cylinder here that is the exact size of my LEDs. So 16 will be the radius. Then I'll go in with the gizmo and make this 22 millimeters high. That is the actual size of the little itty bitty LEDs that I have. So I have to resize the staff to match it. So I'm going to measure this, and the numerical value you see here is millimeters. And with the X-ray toggled, I'm just seeing if the cylinder fits inside of the crystal. I want to make this staff for somebody that's about 5'3". I believe that's 1600 millimeters, so a little taller than that will be good. Believe it or not, you can make dimensionally accurate things in Nomad. Now I have a nice little cubby for our LED little tea light thing. It's the same ones we used in the last video. Now I'm going to clone that cylinder so I can make a little pedestal that it'll seat into. The X-ray view is super handy, and I don't know if it's always had it, because previously I would have to use additive to see through stuff. Now that I'm happy with those two shapes, I'll just join them together. And then I'll make a copy of that little cylinder and boolean that out from the middle. But first, let's save just in case it crashes. Now we can Boolean it. Really, when you're doing big operations like this, anytime it has to do a lot of math, I would save it before you do it. Nomad doesn't crash a lot, but there is a rhyme or reason to when it does. Now that I have that little socket, let's soften around it with a smooth tool. Now I can clone the staff, because we're going to use that to cut out the crystal. But if we do it this way, it is not going to do it, or it's going to crash. Yes, it crashed. This is why we save. So time to approach this from a different angle. So since my screen recording decided to take a shit on me, I'm going to show you what I did in the missing footage. So what you did is you made a clone of the staff, hid everything, and then I trimmed off the top and bottom, so I only had what I really needed. Then, since I don't have it anymore, we're going to add the cylinder of the right proportions. So change the radius to 16, and then with the gizmo, change the height to 22, push that in there where it was supposed to be. Close enough. And then take those pieces and voxel remesh them together. Then after I remesh them together, then I'll decimate them. And of course the crystal didn't look like this, but you get the gist. I inserted a cylinder on the bottom so that it cuts cleanly and there's no gaps. I validated it, and then I moved it around so that it reached all the edges, so that when I booleaned it out, it looked nice. But yeah, that's it. That's literally it that was missed. At least that was the only thing. Okay, back to your regular programming. So now that that's over with, pushing in the shape that I'm using to fill in that void, voxel remeshing them together at a pretty high resolution with sharp edges enabled. I'll decimate it, just so it's not a huge file size. Now I can go in with the little Y shape that I trimmed and voxel remeshed and decimated so that I can cut out the bottom of this successfully. Now these little points are very likely to fail in printing, so I'm just going to trim them away with the lasso tool and symmetry turned off. Now we have a functional part, despite our trials and tribulations. Now we can decimate these parts down so that we can send them to our printer and save it. Let's give these things a name. And export the selected STL into our drive. Ideally, I like having two separate files. Now let's slice this bad boy. So we'll add the staff, and it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be huge. Huge. But there is a way in Bamboo Studio and Orca Slicer to cut this into pieces. I don't want to repair it though, so we'll cut these into 250mm high slices. We'll add connectors, and we want dowels. I think I'll make it 15 deep and 10 wide, but you have to click on the surface to add the dowel. Oh yeah, the clearance, probably 0.2. That should be enough. I want to make sure this fits together. And then you can click on where you want to add the dowel, and then add connector and slice it. But we don't want to repair it because repairing will make things weird. Just hit no. And then we got our piece and the dowel to connect it. So let's deselect everything and then select the next big piece. And we'll split it 250mm high, add the dowel connector, and separate it out where it places on the cut. And just rinse and repeat that until you finish trimming it so it fits on our build plate. Now that we have all the pieces, We can auto-arrange them onto the plate, like that. Very simple. Now the entire staff is ready to go, and let's add another plate to add the crystal. The crystal is a lot more simple to print, and we can repair it. And then I want to make sure supports are enabled. And paint in supports underneath here. I want to make sure to get the edges. And get rid of any supports that we accidentally painted on. And there we go. That's ready to print. Let's slice these things and see what they look like. Not bad, not bad. And the crystal will be super easy to print. I don't have to pray to the printing gods to make sure this works. So going back and looking at what failed, it's this portion that I needed to repair. So let's remesh the staff completely with sharp edges enabled. Now I fixed that little area that failed. And then I'll just decimate it so the file size isn't huge. Print it just by itself in this orientation. making this project and the freeform nature of it. The wizard staff is like really cool. I don't know, high fantasy is my jam. Just a reminder, I'm releasing my models. If you just want to download them, the link is below. If you like what I do, please like the video. I read every single comment, so if you want to leave a comment down below. That helps the algorithm. And if you really like what I do, please subscribe. I hope you guys have a beautiful day, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.